Hey there, Arya, and today we are back with another video on the Neltharus dungeon changes. So for anybody who does not know, Neltharus has... the Neltharus mobs are in 3 types of categories. 1, mobs that can be triggered by chains. 2, mobs that can be hit by chains but cannot trigger chains. And number 3, mobs that can no longer be hit or trigger chains. So below is a list of these mobs for the 3 types. So we're gonna jump into the Neltharus dungeon and we're just gonna take a look. For the most part, most of the mobs that can trigger the chains, it's only on the left side. It's essentially the hunters, trainees, bone tenders, and I believe mini boss. I believe that was the last one. Now, the type 2 mobs, the mobs that can take damage by chains but cannot trigger chains, are the phoenixes as well as these wardens. For the most part, this is the route I have been running, and there are some minor changes that I've made, specifically the mini boss up top. Previously, I would snap these lava bears downstairs and kill them with chains, but because they no longer take damage from chains, I think the old route where you kill the 2 lava bears with the commander is probably fine now. It is probably fine. I thought it was a little bit slower, but it is the more common route that most people use. To be honest, I don't think much has really changed in terms of routes. I'm sure there will be some minor variances, but for the most part, I think you definitely still want to go left. Get your chains on cooldown, then go towards the right side.
5,
do everything up to
4,
Magma Tusk.
3,
Ignore this
2,
countdown.
1.
Currently in raid, but I'm not in for boss, so. And then after Magma Tusk, we come back to the left side again to do chains. You do boss, chain cooldown comes off again, and then you do the left side again, this last room. So I think the downstairs part of the dungeon, nothing has really changed for the most part. The only changes realistically are kind of upstairs. And again, it just has to deal with your percentages. Are you pulling an extra pack right here? Are you pulling, this regular G22? Things like that. So, as far as the timer goes, the dungeon obviously got tighter on time, but I don't think it's too bad. I think it's still very reasonable. I do think you should be able to still do 29s even with this nerf or buff to the dungeon. You should still see some 29s being done despite that, because like I said again, most of the routes that you see already kill a mini boss. So the only main difference is you're not killing this Phoenix with the chains, nor are you killing this G21 pack. What I've opted to do is still do my regular route where I pull this G21 over here. And the reason for doing so is because, first off, we can blow up everything. Still wardens, they'll take damage. You blow up everything. Depending on how grouped your mobs are, sometimes the Overseer will have 40% HP. If you do everything perfectly, Overseer should be around probably like 10 to 15%, something like that. And so if you mess it up, then you'll at least have this Overseer to kill with G21. This part of the route, you can probably still change a little bit. Maybe you just decide to not pull G21 and you can pull this with G22 instead and do a double pull here. That is definitely a possible thing. And then as for inside the room, same thing again. Just you can alter these poles however you would like, just depending on the percentages. And those percentages are determined by what you're pulling in the later parts of the dungeon, specifically upstairs, as well as the phoenixes. Chances are you're probably pulling this phoenix, unless you have like a warlock. I think the only way you can skip this phoenix is with a warlock. Maybe with if you have double dragons, you can fly people over, but I haven't necessarily seen a full group do it yet. Either way, I do think you can still pull this pack into the chains, because these wardens, again, can be hit by chains still. They can still be hit by chains. So you can pull this pack into the chains over here, and actually, this is slightly different. This is what we used to do. So you leave a couple of mobs inside here to trigger the chains. Again, you can only trigger them on trainees, hunters, things like that. You cannot trigger it off of wardens nor the phoenixes. So you pull it over here to this corner or inside, doesn't really matter where. And then you just break the chains. It should lower the health of all the wardens, things like that. But you'll obviously be single targeting the phoenix down. And so that, I think, is probably the biggest time waster compared to pre-nerf. I don't think there's really much else that has changed. For the most part, I don't think too much has changed. Yes, you did lose a bit of time, but the only things you've really lost time on are on G21 and 22 if you decided to pull these packs into chains, as well as G49, the Phoenix, and I guess the Lava Bears if you decided to not snap them down. Aside from that though, I mean, that's only, what, 3 pulls? So for the most part, I think the timer, at most, you probably have to add onto the clock like 2 minutes, perhaps? Yeah, probably around 2 minutes to 2 minute 30, which is, I think a pretty reasonable amount, because I don't even think 2 to 2:30 is going to be the case once people start updating the routes to make these pulls a little bit more efficient. Alright, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.